Imagine yourself going to the gynecologist's office for your annual checkup. Your doctor comes in and performs the normal procedures for a pap smear, sends the test results away. You, of course, are going on with your life just like you normally do. Going shopping, going on some dates, or just relaxing by the pool. Until you get a phone call. This phone call is from your gynecologist's office, and it's the nurse on the phone. You are expecting good news, but, in fact, it's bad news. She tells you you have been tested positive for HPV. What would be the thoughts rushing through your head at that very moment? What is HPV? How did I get it? Will it go away? Will it harm me? Well, first, I will discuss what HPV is. Second, I will explain how you know if you have HPV and if there are any symptoms. Third, I will explain if it can be treated. And fourth and finally, I will discuss what HPV can cause. What is HPV? Well, it stands for human papillomavirus and affects the skin and the mucous membrane. There are more than 100 types of HPV, and there are roughly 30 types that are caused from direct genital contact. Those are either the high risk or the low risk. High risk means it can cause cervical cancer if the infection remains and grows due from the abnormal cell growth. Low risk is not associated with cancer, but it causes genital warts. According to an informative website, HPV.com, there are 4 types that cause the most cases of HPV. Type 16 and 18 cause 75% of cervical cancer cases. Type 6 and 11 cause 90% of genital wart cases. Each day in the U.S., 30 women are diagnosed with cervical cancer. That's about 11,000 a year. Every day, about 12,000 people ages 15 to 24 are infected with HPV. And they say it is to be estimated that every minute a male or a female are diagnosed with genital warts. These are some brochures I picked up from my gynecologist's office about HPV, and I strongly recommend the next time you go in for an appointment to pick one up. They are very helpful and really good tools to look back on. So how does someone get HPV? Well, having unprotected sex is one way. 30 types are spread through direct genital contact. But there are also some types you can get that are just skin-to-skin contact, and like sharing a towel, for example. So what that means is you could be a virgin but still get HPV. The best way to prevent it is, of course, practicing abstinence. And as of now, there are no tests for men to see if they carry this virus. It does not affect their body, but it affects ours. This is why it's vital to choose your partners carefully or to practice abstinence. Now that I've discussed what HPV is, I will now discuss how you know if you have HPV and what the symptoms are if there are any that exist. How do you know if you have HPV? Well, most of the time, the genital types of HPV do not cause any symptoms. With high risk, which is the potentially cancer-causing types of HPV, the only way to know if you have abnormal cell growths is by looking at your cervix. And this is done by pap smears. If you are over the age of 30, you can get an HPV test. If they catch the cell growth early enough, they can detect it and remove it before it turns into cancer. And to know if you have low risk, your only symptom would be having genital warts. Now that we have learned how you know if you have HPV, I will discuss how it can be treated. There are no medicines that can treat the HPV infection, but the good news is the virus usually goes away on its own and your immune system rids it from your body. If the infection continues, there are treatments for abnormal cell growth. To remove the precancerous cells, there is a procedure called LEAP. It stands for Loop Electrosurgical Excision Procedure. According to the website womenshealth.com, LEAP uses a thin wire loop electrode, which is attached to an electrosurgical generator. The generator transmits a painless electrical current that cuts away the affected cervical tissue. And this separates the infected tissue from the cervix, and they send this piece off to examine underneath a microscope for abnormal cell growth, and this is also a way for it to be removed. There's also a laser therapy. Cures for genital warts include there's gels, there's creams, lasers, or other technologies. There is a thing called Gardasil, and this is the only HPV vaccine. It's 3 injections over a 6-month period, and it protects against the 4 major types that we discussed earlier. 6, 11, 16, and 18. And it is recommended for girls as young as 9 years old. The best thing to do, though, is to have your pap smears done regularly to give a possibility of early detection. It can be prevented with early treatments. Now that you have learned what the treatments of HPV are, I will now discuss how likely it is you will get cervical cancer from having HPV. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, estimates that 70% of new HPV infections, including high risk, go away within 1 year. 91% are gone in 2 years. According to a website, the HPVtest.com, overall it's estimated that women who have long-lasting infection with high-risk HPV are 200 plus times more likely to develop precancerous cervical disease than those without it. So from all of this information, you can see how important it is to make women aware of HPV and to have your pap smears done regularly. HPV should not be taken lightly, and you should take the necessary precautions to prevent it. You now know what HPV is, how you know if you have it and the symptoms, how it can be treated, and if you have it, how likely it is for it to turn into cervical cancer, and what you can do to prevent it. But understand that sexuality is as wide as the ocean. Understand that your morality is not law. Understand you can decide to have sex whether it's safe or unsafe, but understand that there are consequences for the wrong decisions, and we must aim for the right ones. Thank you.